I'm Matt Pratten, and I'm the Senior Regional Analyst for Europe here at Intelligence Fusion. Today, I'll be providing a briefing on the Ukraine-Russia conflict in the Donbass region, and I'll break it down into three parts. I'll provide a brief overview of the conflict, a recent look at what's been happening lately and point out some SIGACTS, or significant activities, and then finish up with some key insights and key takeaways. Before I get into that though, if you like our content, please hit like, share and subscribe in order to keep up to date with our latest work. Well, so to provide a very quick overview of what's been happening in the Donbass region. In March 2014, Russia invaded the Crimean Peninsula and the Donbass region of Ukraine through the use of its own military, through the use of the Wagner Group mercenaries, which if you've checked some of our previous episodes, they got a mention. Also through the use of supporting pro-Russia separatist groups based in the region. Now, at the time, Russian President Vladimir Putin claimed it was done in the name of protecting Russian-speaking populations in those areas due to some long-standing issues at the time. However, there is, of course, more to it than that, but looking into the strategic importance of the Donbass region and the Crimean Peninsula, that's a completely different brief. Now, the conflict has seen quite a bit of damage to the region, especially towards its infrastructure. And because of the fallout of what's been happening since 2014, various ceasefire agreements known as the Minsk Accords were drawn up with the aim of, first of all, creating a ceasefire, then allowing a withdrawal of weapons. And this was done with a view to eventually end the conflict. But in reality, all that's really happened is it's created a stalemate in the region that features frequent ceasefire violations as well as violations of the withdrawal lines set in the various agreements. Now, to have a look at what's been happening, and to do this, I've got a filter set up on our platform looking at incidents after the 10th of December. The significance of that date is essentially looking at incidents after a picture intelligence summary we released a while ago, or PIC-INTSUM. So looking at what's been happening since our last report. Now, to sum up what's been going on is we've continued to see incidents of direct weapons, bombings, indirect weapons, as well as incidents of air assets. And to sum up the activity, there's probably a few themes I could point out. First of all, ceasefire violations. The trend of ceasefire violations tends to occur to the northwest of Donetsk city, usually between Avdiivka and Yasinovarta. And the other major area of activity when it comes to ceasefire violations is down to the south, just to the north of Mariupol, usually between Vodyan, Leninsk and Pakuzy. Now, when it comes to these various ceasefire violations, what tends to be the case is that it's usually various infantry units engaging each other's positions through the use of small arms fire, firing of heavy machine guns, the use of grenade launchers, and also the use of mortars, both 82mm and 120mm caliber mortars. Then there is various withdrawal violations. Now, reporting continues to mention that both sides have been violating the withdrawal lines set out by the various agreements. Now, essentially, the major ones we've noticed are there's been various instances of armor, artillery, and anti-aircraft assets being sighted both in Donetsk and Luhansk oblasts. And from what we can tell, both sides appear to be bringing in various assets into the region. A newer trend we've been noticing actually as well is the hindering of monitoring missions throughout the Donbass region. The reports published by the OSCE in Ukraine have indicated frequent efforts to hinder their activities by both sides, especially when they try to conduct ISR missions or intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance missions through with their UAVs or unmanned aerial vehicles. There's been quite a few occasions where their UAVs have been subject to signal interference, which has been assessed to be from electronic jamming, and there's even been instances where their UAVs have even been shot at. And from what we can tell with all these various efforts to hinder their monitoring is that both sides are trying to conceal what they're up to. Finally, notice quite a few instances of landmines and weapons caches. Both sides continue to lay landmines across the region, both anti-personnel and anti-tank mines. And furthermore, there's been instances of Ukrainian law enforcement coming across weapons caches being found in the area. Now, based on the imagery from those reports, these weapons caches have been in place for quite some time and tend to be caches that include quite a few explosives, grenades, TNT, anti-armor weapons, etc. And the condition of those various explosives, they tend to be in very poor condition, indicating that they've been there for quite some time. So they don't really pose much of a threat in the way of actually being used as grenades or anti-armor weapons anymore, but they do pose a threat as explosive remnants of war. Now to look at some recent significant activities, or SIGACTS. The first one I'd like to point out is on the 15th of December 2020, where the Ukrainian MOD signed an agreement with the Turkish to acquire various new assets, which included UAVs. Now, from what we can tell, this would possibly mean that the Ukrainians would be able to acquire the Bayraktar TB2 UAV. Now, this asset has been proven to be very effective in other theatres, especially in Libya, where I worked for a period of time. And from what I noticed of this particular asset is that while it is very effective as an ISR asset, it also doubles over as a very effective close air support capability. And on the 18th of December 2020, came across reporting of 7 BM-27 Urahan MBRLs being sighted in Rubizhny, Luhansk Oblast. Now, these assets were sighted at the Rubizhny railway station, an area under Ukrainian control. Previously, we've only seen this asset sighted on the Russian side of the conflict. Now, the BM-27 Urahan can fire high explosive 220mm rockets at area targets up to 34 kilometers or 21 miles away. It's a larger scale version of the BM-21 Grad launcher, and there's plenty of those already throughout the region on both sides. With its range, just from Rubizhny itself, this asset could fire well into Russian-held territory. But of course, it's not going to remain in Rubizhny for long. There are other locations it would be more useful in. So wherever it gets moved to, it's going to be able to fire up to 21 miles away, deep into Russian lines. From the 17th to the 19th of December 2020, came across reports of multiple 2S7 Pion self-propelled artillery guns being sighted in Pokrovsk in Donetsk Oblast. These assets also appear to be Ukrainian, but they do not appear to have been sighted anywhere else in the region at this time. Now, this self-propelled artillery gun fires 203mm rounds with a range of 37.5 kilometers or 23 miles, or with the use of rocket-assisted projectiles, it can fire at targets up to 47.5 kilometers away or 29 miles. Now, this artillery platform appears to have the longest range of any weapon system in the region at the moment. And from that location itself, the 2S7 Pion could reach the front lines of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Now, of course, this asset is not going to be positioned in that town for long. With it being a mobile asset, it'll be quickly moved to areas where it can be effectively utilized. And wherever it is moved to, it will therefore be able to engage targets between 37 kilometers or 23 miles, or depending on the ammunition, could engage up to 47.5 kilometers or 29 miles. Effectively, wherever that asset gets placed, anything within range could essentially be targeted with 203mm rounds. Effectively, whatever this thing fires at, it's going to cause significant damage to whatever it hits. A little further south, on the 23rd of January 2021, came across reports of what appears to be an infantry fighting vehicle, or APC, armored personnel carrier, firing rounds near Bodanivka in Donetsk Oblast. Now, reporting indicated a ceasefire violation that included the use of multiple rounds of 30mm cannon fire. Now, when we took a look at that particular caliber of ammunition and what weapon systems fire that particular ammunition, it led us to assess that this could have either been from a BMP variant infantry fighting vehicle or a BTR APC, or armored personnel carrier. Now, this particular asset, the mention of it in the region, it isn't new. It's, given the war footing, given the war situation that's occurring, this particular asset, there's lots of them around the region on both sides. However, reporting on ceasefire violations rarely mention the use of this particular asset. So what we can tell for at the moment is this particular incident would appear to be an escalation of force. So with all of that in mind, what are the insights? First of all, the Donbass region is currently a hostile environment. And this region features threats posed by small arms fire, indirect fire from mortars, communication issues due to electronic warfare, as well as landmines and UXOs. And this mainly stems from the stalemate situation we've been tracking for quite some time. And that's and it's most likely to occur in areas to the northwest of Donetsk city and also down to the south to near Mariupol area. But those are the main areas. Of course, the ceasefire violations occur pretty much throughout Donbass. Now, from spring 2021, it's likely to see an increase in activity, and because of improved weather conditions, there'll likely be the additional feature of armor, artillery, and even anti-aircraft assets, and even the possibility of UAVs being used in the region. So from spring 2021, what we're seeing at the moment with the ceasefire violations, chances are those ceasefire violations from spring are going to intensify with the use of additional weapon systems. And with the use of anti-aircraft assets that we've spotted with the various withdrawal violations, chances are there's going to be a significant threat to aircraft over the region. So it may be prudent to avoid flying over that particular part of Ukraine. So there will also be the need for contingencies. With the threats that we're tracking at the moment and the assessed increase in tensions from spring 2021, people operating in the Donbass region or those who have an interest in the region will need to anticipate multiple threats to not just their people, but to their operations. Essentially, any kind of operation in the region will need to have various contingencies in order to plan for various threats such as UXOs, small arms fire, and even communications issues from possible electronic jamming. Finally, increased security and vigilance. Now, this conflict will have effects not just within the Donbass region, but also spread further, especially across wider Ukraine. Places such as airports, border crossings, and major cities are likely to feature increased activity and vigilance from security and law enforcement, which will therefore mean that entry and exit into Ukraine, you can anticipate the possibility of greater scrutiny towards your interests in the region. That's all for the time being on the Ukraine-Russia conflict. Thanks very much.
Here at Intelligence Fusion, we find, monitor, and analyze incidents across the world from a 24/7 operations center. We use the intelligence cycle and military principles to provide actionable insight into the global security landscape. To take a closer look at the data behind our assessment, or to see how your business could benefit from a tailored intelligence feed, click on the link in the podcast description.